Every time you stir sugar into your coffee, you're touching the legacy of one of history's darkest trades. For centuries, sugar wasn't just a craving, it was power. It turned empires rich, made kings desperate, and built a world where sweetness came only through suffering. Behind every spoonful lay blood, chains, and the rise of modern slavery. This is the story of how something so small, so innocent, became the engine of the world's greatest crime. Chapter 1. The taste that changed the world. Sugar wasn't always everywhere. Once, it was a luxury, rarer than gold, reserved for kings and priests. In medieval Europe, a pinch of sugar could show more status than a jewel. But when people tasted it, they wanted more. It was the first true addiction of the modern world, a craving that spread faster than any plague. As demand exploded, Europe faced a problem: how to produce enough of this white gold. The answer would come from the tropics and from human misery. The Caribbean, Brazil, and parts of North America became perfect for sugarcane. But sugarcane was brutal to harvest: long hours, burning heat, sharp leaves. Europe needed cheap labor, and they found it in Africa. Chapter 2. The Trade Triangle. They called it the triangular trade, a polite name for a monstrous system. Ships left Europe filled with weapons, rum, and manufactured goods. They sailed to Africa, traded those goods for people, men, women, and children, then crossed the Atlantic, packed like cargo, bound for sugar plantations. Millions never made it alive. Those who did were forced into fields where they would spend their lives cutting, boiling, and dying for someone else's sweetness. In the Caribbean alone, life expectancy for an enslaved person was often less than 10 years. Sugar wasn't grown, and it was extracted from human lives. Each bag that reached London or Paris was soaked in blood. And yet, the profits were so massive that no empire could resist. Sugar didn't just build plantations. It built the modern economy: the banks, the ports, the ships, even the insurance companies that covered slave ships. The world was getting rich, but only a few were tasting the sweetness. Chapter 3. The Empire of Sweetness. By the 1700s, sugar had conquered Europe. It was in tea, pastries, medicines, even politics. England, France, Spain, and Portugal all fought wars for control of sugar islands. Places like Jamaica, Barbados, and Saint-Domingue became the beating heart of empire wealth. Each island was a machine, powered by chains. Enslaved Africans worked under armed overseers, cutting cane from dawn till death. Nights were spent boiling sugar in scorching houses, breathing toxic smoke, sleeping on the floor. Europe called it civilization, but it was built on barbarity. And back home, the upper classes stirred sugar into their tea, completely disconnected from the suffering that made it possible. For them, sweetness meant progress. For those who made it, sweetness meant pain. The irony was complete. Sugar made life better for one half of the world by destroying the other. Chapter 4. Saint-Domingue, the sweetest hell. Nowhere showed the extremes of sugar like Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti. By the late 1700s, it was the richest colony on Earth. Half of the world's sugar came from there. And it ran entirely on slavery. Plantations held hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans. Conditions were so horrific that most died within a decade, constantly replaced by new captives. Yet in that hell, something remarkable happened. The enslaved began to rise. Whispers of rebellion spread through the cane fields. In 1791, those whispers became the Haitian Revolution, the first successful slave revolt in history. The same fields that produced sugar would now ignite a revolution that terrified every empire. Sweetness had created slavery, but it would also plant the seeds of freedom. Chapter 5. Blood in the Cup. As the Haitian Revolution burned across the Caribbean, Europe faced a crisis. Sugar was running out, and suddenly, the same people who ignored slavery began to care, not about lives, but about profit. So, they turned to new colonies: Cuba, Mauritius, and Louisiana. The system reinvented itself, just with new faces and new chains. Even when Britain and France began to outlaw the slave trade, sugar plantations quietly continued, calling it indentured labor. Different name, same cruelty. Indian and Chinese laborers were shipped across oceans under contracts they could never escape. The plantations stayed full, and the teacups of Europe never went empty. The world was addicted, not just to sugar, but to the comfort of ignoring where it came from. Chapter 6. The Sweet Illusion. By the 1800s, sugar was everywhere, and slavery officially was gone. But that's the illusion. In truth, slavery didn't end. It evolved. It became poverty wages, colonial debt, and industrial exploitation. The plantations turned into factories. The chains became contracts, and the workers changed from African slaves to poor laborers in colonies controlled by the same empires. The addiction to cheap sweetness never stopped. Even today, sugarcane workers in parts of the world face deadly heat, unsafe conditions, and modern debt slavery. We like to believe the age of chains is over, but as long as sugar stays cheap, someone, somewhere, is still paying the hidden price. Chapter 7. The Taste of Power. Sugar didn't just shape diets, it shaped power. It financed the British Navy. It built cities like Liverpool and Bristol. It funded art, politics, and even universities. The wealth from sugar touched everything, even the very systems that justified it. Racism, economics, and empire all grew together. The sweetness wasn't just a craving, it was a tool to control labor, wealth, and people. The same product that made desserts also made doctrines. It sweetened lies that lasted for centuries, that one race could rule another, that comfort was worth any cost, that progress required pain. And in a way, we still live inside that lie. Chapter 8. Aftertaste. Sugar built the modern world. Its shadow shaped everything, from capitalism to colonization. Every spoonful of sweetness in your tea, every bite of dessert on your plate, is a taste of history, one written in blood. But knowing the truth isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because when you see what sweetness once cost, you start to question what it still costs today. The story of sugar isn't just about the past, it's a mirror, showing what we're still willing to ignore for the things we crave most.